Well, Razorback fans, let's talk about these injuries. This is absurd. It's looking like a mass unit each and every day with this athletic department, and we got to figure out what's going on.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 1037thebuzz.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday, as we got plenty of things to talk about here today and get through some updates and whatnot. But this was a tough podcast that I really was hesitant about doing and about talking about, because I know, just looking at what everybody's been watching and everybody's been paying attention to, and especially via social media and everything, it's been no doubt that the transfer portal and basketball has overtaken so much of our attention. And we'll get to a little bit of that, at least for an update on a particular player. But it's amazing how it's gone. And it's amazing to see the development and how people, really want more of that. But I wanted to use this break in action of the transfer portal, which I'm sure as soon as I put up this podcast, it's going to have some sort of big time breaking news. But I want to talk about injuries. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about injuries. And it's not a fun topic to discuss, but it is something that is important to discuss. And I had an idea, or at least I knew, of Dylan Carter, the pitcher for the Razorbacks, was going to be out for the season. I knew about it earlier this week. A family friend told me about it. And they told me not to say anything, so I didn't. But it came official yesterday, and I'll put up the statement here on video, the message from Dylan Carter that he put up on social media. He says, "Razorback Nation, is with a heavy heart that I announce my 2023 season has come to an end due to a UCL tear. This season has been nothing short of amazing, and our team's season isn't over yet. I will be the best teammate and supporter as we finish up the season and begin our run to Omaha, number 31. So that was Dylan Carter, and what he was, kind of giving a message out to the Razorback Nation on him being out for the year. And now you're talking about three pitchers. Start with Jackson Wiggins, then of course Cody Frank, and now Dylan Carter, who are out for the season. You talk about other guys that have been into the mix that have been hurt. Of course, we know with Brady Tigert and what he's dealt with. The guys in the infield, like we could go on and on and on. But it's almost like a bigger issue than just even the baseball team, which I know that's getting all the attention right now because it is baseball season. But it's become comical almost at this point. It's become comical that in this year's team, which this team is still, it's incredible that they're still a national seed right now. If the season ended today, they would be a number 5, number 6 seed with so many injuries to the pitching staff, to the lineup, across the board. You got to give them a lot of credit for that. But it hasn't just been baseball that's been impacted by this in such a crazy way. Think about basketball. We know Trevor and Brazil going out for the year, the Nick Smith saga. Those are really the only two, but if you put that into perspective and also throwing in Anthony Black, who was dealing with injury all season long, but still was a warrior and fought it out, it really had an impact on the year, which ended up being still Sweet 16. You lost to the eventual champs and a buzzsaw in UConn. I still believe that if Arkansas played a different team other than UConn, they probably make it to the Elite Eight, maybe even the Final Four, but that's not what happens. But still, they were still great considering all the injuries that they dealt with. But then even in football, you take us back this past season. The injuries to the secondary, Jalen Catalon is where it all started, and then it kind of just snowballed from there, where you had secondary guys dropping left and right. Guys were out for the season. You had injuries to KJ Jefferson and what he was having to deal with on the year. You had injuries with Bumper Pool, and he was in and out. He still played, but still wasn't 100% on it, and it impacted the season. Now, I am not sitting here and saying that the only that Arkansas in basketball would have won a national championship if Trevin Brazil and Nick Smith weren't hurt all year. Because we don't know that. I like their chances a little bit better, but we don't know for a fact if that would have been what happened. Same thing in football, because I feel like there were also some more issues going on than just injuries. But if KJ Jefferson was 100% healthy all season long, and you didn't lose Catalon, and you didn't lose the other secondary guys, you had Bumper Pool the whole year. Like, if you had those elements to the entire season, would Arkansas have gone better in 6-6? I think so. I can point to at least 2 games that would have made a difference. I think we all could with the LSU game. If KJ Jefferson plays, I think Arkansas wins that game. And I think that with the game against Liberty even, KJ played, but he was not healthy. Everyone could tell he was not healthy. So I think they win that game too. It's, again, woulda, coulda, shoulda, doesn't matter. But the point is that injuries have had such a major impact on the three major sports this academic season in a way that I don't ever even remember a time where it's been this bad. And I just started thinking about just in the past 10 years or so, and all three of the major sports trying to put together an idea of injuries and how bad they've been and what impact that they've had and, you know, what it had for the season. Like I think back to when I remember Jonathan Williams went out for the year in football. But he got hurt, and I think it was Jerry Cornelius and Keon Hatcher got hurt on the offense. It was pretty rough, but Arkansas still powered through, still had a really good offense. But, you know, it wasn't still like as major of an impact. You know, I think about, when that happened. And then in basketball, too, like really the only one that comes to mind, and it really didn't make that much of a difference. But I remember when Mike Anderson's first season at Arkansas, Marshawn Powell was supposed to play, and he got hurt for the year. And so they didn't have anybody really on the squad to make up for a lot of that lost talent. So they struggled there. But even if Marshawn Powell was on the team, I don't know, how much better that team would have been, or if they would have made the NCAA tournament. Baseball, we know Peyton Paulette just last season, Arkansas still made the World Series and was this close to being in the finals. And, it makes you wonder if he would have been 100% ready to go and played all year, the difference he would have made. That's, of course, the most recent one. And then baseball has other ones. But the point is like, if you just go back the last 10 years and you look at all the major sports, you're like, okay, so what was the biggest injury that happened? And let's even do it 20 years. Let's say 20 years back from 2003 to 2023. Think about for the three major sports, the biggest injuries that had the impact on those teams respectively in those seasons. And I feel like you can make arguments for them, but I feel like everyone would point to, this past year. Like you don't even have to go back 20 years. It's like this year is when the biggest injuries happened that had the biggest impacts on these teams that made the difference between possibly having an incredible year or just a good year or an average year. Now, baseball's not over, so they can make up for it. They can have a tremendous year. And then honestly, I don't want to put it this way because we all want to win a national championship. We all want to win the College World Series title. But considering what this team's gone through, if they just make it to Omaha, it's an extreme success because of the injuries that they've been having to deal with. So I understand that you can look at it in different ways and different perspectives, and I'm sure all of you are going to. But I just don't know why this has happened in the way that it's happened. Especially, it's almost like we're all paying for what happened last academic year, where football went 9-4. It won in the Outback Bowl, one of the best seasons they've had in 10 years. Where basketball just put it together and went to the Elite Eight and beat Gonzaga, the number one overall seed, and fun fashion. And in baseball, going to the World Series and being so good and turning it on at the right time. Everything about last year's major sports, or at least the last academic year, everything met the expectation or beyond. Like 9-4 was above the expectation that fans had. Going back to the Elite Eight, I believe was above the expectations that most had. It was flirting with it, but still above. Beating the number one overall seed, definitely above. Baseball, the way that team looked, going to the World Series, above and beyond the expectations. So it's almost like we're paying for all of this now. And I don't know why. And sometimes you start to question things of like, is there some sort of Indian burial ground that they've messed with? Is there some sort of major issue within like the nutrition? Like it's just, I know that that's absurd and it's not something that actually legitimately needs to be questioned. Maybe strength and conditioning needs to be looked at, but you're talking about in three different sports though. You 3 different strength and conditioning staffs, 3 different things. Like that's what makes this so terrible and so annoying and so frustrating and so awful for the kids, is that it's not just one thing that you can point to and say, this is why. And I've seen some people on social media, at least with the baseball team, try to put together some sort of reasoning behind it. Well, here's why the problems are happening. Here's why Tommy John surgeries are going on. It's because of this, that, and the other. I'm like, or stop traffic. It could just be a really crappy coincidence. It could just be that them's the breaks. Like it could be that, because usually injuries are. Like there's nothing that could have prevented Trevin Brazile from getting injured the way that he did. It was just a freak accident. There's nothing that could have prevented a guy like Josenberger or Wagner from getting hurt the way that they have, because it's just what happens. Maybe you could say, oh, well, with, like in football, maybe if KJ didn't take as many hits or whatnot, okay, fine. But the point is that there's just not enough things that you can just point to and say, if we do this differently, that's how we have less injuries and that's how we have better seasons. There's nothing that you can do about it. And I hate it. And I hate the fact that we look at this year with these three major sports and just say, man, if that guy would have played, or if this guy would have been healthy, or whatever, what it could have been. And I don't want this year to be the what could have been year. I don't want that. But it is terrible and it is annoying. And thoughts and prayers to Dylan Carter. Hopefully he has a good recovery. And even like Quincy McAdoo getting in a car wreck. Like, what in the world, y'all? Like, what is this? What am I seeing right now? What's going on in Fayetteville? Like, when I was there and nothing was this happening, is it because I'm not there anymore? Like, I don't know. But I hate it. I hate it for the kids. I hate it for the coaching staff. And I hope that everybody gets healthier and gets better out of it too. So we'll wait and see. But still, I wish I could make sense out of it. I wish I could, but I can't. None of us can. It's just something we have to deal with and something that we can hope for the best in, especially with this Razorback baseball team. We're going to talk a little bit about some topics of conversation, and I'm sure have never been discussed before here in just a second. But folks, I got to tell you about Built Bar. We know that it is that time of year. Warm weather's coming around. We're trying to make sure that we're eating healthy, and it's easier said than done, especially when there's so many temptations out there for so many great food items and so many great meals. You sit back, you look back, and you're like, man, I could really go for that chocolate bar, or man, I could really go for that bag of chips, whatever it may be. Well, stop what you're doing, because the reason you go for those things is because they taste amazing, right? They satisfy you. They satisfy the hunger. Built Bar is the best of both worlds, where not only do they taste amazing, but they're healthy for you. 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, with tons of different flavors to choose from, and they're easy to get. All you got to do is go to Built.com, check out the website. You can see all the inventory that they have, and then you can also go to your local Walmart and Sam's Club. We know we love Walmart and Sam's Club here in Arkansas. Hey, it is Arkansas. Go over there to the pharmacy section, check them out today, and you'll be able to get boxes of Built Bars and different sizes, different shapes, different flavors. Doesn't matter. Check them out at Built.com or your local Walmart and Sam's Club.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I didn't want to talk about this because I feel like I've talked about this in my career in radio and in podcasting so much. But I think it's a little bit different now, or at least approached differently now. And what it comes down to is Arkansas baseball being the latest example of a team that struggles in Dickey-Stephens Park and in Little Rock when they play there, as they ended up losing to Lipscomb. People were frustrated, and people started bringing up the fact that they should take games out of Little Rock, all games. And that sparked the whole debate of not only just football, but basketball, baseball, everything, because Arkansas does not play well down there. And basketball, they've won games, but all the games that they've won felt like they were down to the wire and too close for comfort. They did lose a game to Hofstra, which really set some people off. Baseball have had success there, but they've also not played well. They haven't beat teams that they should have more consistently. And we all know about football and playing in Little Rock and everything that the struggles that they've had and the tough games they've had. The last time they did was UAPB, which they smoked. But I think that was just more the fact that UAPB was not a good team. And that was, kind of we'll see what happens this year when Arkansas goes back to Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium. But the thing is this always just comes out whenever Arkansas has a bad game down here in Central Arkansas. Now, I have gotten people on my rear end about this stuff because I'm kind of I'm in two different positions on it. I'm a Fayetteville kid, and I'm proud of that. I love Fayetteville. That's my hometown. I grew up there. Spent 27 years of my life down there, up there, I should say, and I love it. And growing up, I was always somebody that hated games in Little Rock because I'm like, it got talked about as it was some sort of like, oh, the miracle on Markham wouldn't have happened if it was in Fayetteville. It had to be in Little Rock. And I hated that because I'm like, you don't know that because the game wasn't played there. Like maybe it was just great teams with great games. And the atmosphere was great too in Little Rock. But, time passed on and when you start seeing the facility that got built in Fayetteville and being a home game and the amount of money that's involved in it and recruiting and all those things, it's just like, it seems like it's no longer necessary. But then here I am living in Little Rock and working in Little Rock at 103.7 The Buzz and hearing from people that grew up here and grew up going to those games. And I can see their side of it too, where it's a tradition. It's something to where it's tough for people to possibly get around the state or get up to Fayetteville. It's expensive to go see games. And this is kind of a one chance opportunity to see it and see the team play and all of that. And so I'm like, okay, I get that too. Fayetteville's unique in that way where it's up in the northwest corner of the state. And it's a statewide program where all four corners are covered by Razorback fans. So it's like I see all sides of it. I really do. And I think that with like, it comes down to this. Like, first off, you got to look at the games differently. Baseball and being a midweek game, you're not going to be like this past game, like they were throwing out anybody, freshmen. They're out of pitching. They just are so beat up right now. It's been tough. And not only that, but there are reasons to why they haven't been able to, put out their best players, but making sure guys get healed up. And that's also how they handle every midweek game, regardless if it's in North Little Rock or if it's in Fayetteville. Like, it's just, that's how midweek games go. And so with basketball, it's different because, you play different opponents there. And we know that Arkansas has struggled at times. And, Bud Walton Arena, without doubt, is the best atmosphere I think, in the SEC. I don't think, people argue with me, but I'm just being real about it. But they've struggled down there too. And, football, again, here's my stance on it all. And, people can have their own ideas and their own thoughts about it. But here's my thing. I believe that in football, after 2025 happens with that game against Arkansas State in Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium, I believe that'll be the end of games in Little Rock permanently. And I think it should be. And that is nothing against Little Rock. I love the people here in the Central Arkansas area. And it's nothing against, anything about anybody or any insulting. It's just the time has come where home games and football, as few as they are, and how much they count on them for money and recruiting, you cannot afford to lose another home game like you have been playing in Arlington. You can't afford to lose two of them each year. Just can't do it. So after 2025, it's going to stay in Fayetteville, and I think that's what needs to happen. Like, the facility at War Memorial is just not to where level that you need to have it at as an SEC school, and that's just the way it needs to be. However, basketball and baseball, I feel differently about, where I'm all for playing games in those places. As long as they're non-conference games, as long as they're games against beatable opponents, and as long as it's not during a time or scheduling or out of some sort of problem with playing down there when it takes away from your other schedule too. Like playing Lipscomb and Dickey-Stevens Park, you want to win those games, and who knows, if Arkansas was a little bit healthier, they probably would have won that game. But you're still going to play the game, and like, if at the end of the season, if you look back upon it and Arkansas goes to the College World Series, you're not going to be like, well, just imagine if we won that game in Little Rock. Like, no, it's not going to matter. And same thing with basketball. It's about the opponents that you play. And I think with Arkansas and way Muss schedules things, it's good to have it down there. I wish that they would have television ability and streaming ability. That is kind of sad, especially in this day and age, in 2023, in the year of our Lord. They can't have that. They need to work on that. That's something they need to have done. And I know it's more so of a U of A thing than what it is the others, but you got to figure out some other way to do that. But overall, I just don't think that, besides football, I don't think that the games are going to come out of Little Rock, and nor do I think they need to. They're fine. It's fine. You win some, you lose some. You have success, you don't have success. It's okay. But to people just going to arms and starting to attack each other because it's like, oh, get games out of Little Rock and whatnot, I don't agree with that. Not in basketball and baseball. It's one game. Like in baseball, how many games do they play? Like, what was it in the regular season? 40, 50, somewhere in there? Even more? One game? Was one game going to change everything? No. Basketball. 30 plus games in the regular season. 13 or so in non-conference play. Is one game going to kill it? Is one game going to change everything? No. But football, it's pretty big. It's a big deal. So don't move the games out of Little Rock. Don't be dumb. Don't say dumb things. And don't freak out over one little performance. It'll be okay. We are going to talk about latest player that was on Arkansas's radar. They made a decision. and we'll get to that on the other side of the break. This is the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Everybody has been talking about these transfer portal players. Well, Hunter Dickinson officially makes his decision, and he's going to Kansas. It is pretty much how to put it. He is deciding to take his talents there to Lawrence, and here's kind of the video he put up, which, all right, whatever. But I'm still going to play the video for you, and, just so you can at least get an idea of what it was like.
Yo, what's up?
Hunt, what's the hold up? You got players, coaches, you got the whole world waiting.
Yeah, you're right. It's time. This decision might even been harder than the first one coming out of high school. Having all these coaches hit you up again. Then again, it was also kind of easier in a sense, been going through it and stuff. But I'm just really glad it's over now. Coach.
What's up, big fella? I am fantastic. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to come play for you next year at Kansas.
Oh, you know what? I was hoping it was going to be good news.
Okay. So he's going to Kansas. Great. I actually like that more than him going to like Kentucky or anything else. And I know Arkansas was in the mix, but they're moving on to bigger and better things. So, it was exciting for a moment there, and I thought that Hunter Dickinson would have been awesome to add, but it certainly seemed like as time went on, especially over the past few days, I didn't like the way it was going. And I think that maybe there were some other schools, maybe even Muss and Arkansas, were like, you know what, we don't need this type of stuff. We don't need the podcast nonsense, and then just trying to get clicks and subscribers and stuff, and then the back and forth, and then kind of being weird about it. I don't know. It just seemed like it was much of a production that wasn't worth it, or at least wasn't something that should have been as big of a deal as what it was. So I wish him luck, and he'll probably do really well at Kansas. It's the right move for him, and I think he'll be great. But I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of over the top. And so Arkansas is moving on. Hunter Dickinson's not at Arkansas, but he's not in the SEC, which is nice. So now Arkansas is still going to be working on Grant Nelson, which I think is a big one. Ron Holland's still into the mix. Like maybe we'll find out today or here in the next couple of days what he'll end up doing. So it's not over yet, but that's at least one ball that's dropped or shoe that's dropped, whatever that phrase is. I don't know. But either way, one player that Arkansas was targeting is moving on somewhere else. So on to the next one, but we'll keep you updated on all of that as time goes on. But appreciate everybody listening into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.